Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story, my interview series based after my book, Stories from Web, where I seek to find other people who have inspired me with different things they're trying to do to make the world a better place or experiences they've had in their own lives that I hope by bringing their stories to you will help you be inspired and feel brave enough to share pieces of your story. I am super pumped about this week's guest. I have Derek Lopez here with me this week. So, Derek, kind of tell everybody who you are.
Well, thanks for the intro. So, my name's Derek Lopez, and I am the founder and CEO of Stand Up Our Kids LLC. And we manufacture standing desks for kids. And then, myself, as an independent individual, I have done many crowdfunding campaigns for families and schools, mainly in the arena of trying to raise money for standing desks and push this whole movement. In general, our main mission is to give every student in America the opportunity to stand up in the classroom, not necessarily monopolize classrooms with standing desks. However, at least give every classroom a few desks and every kid, the opportunity to make that choice to stand up if they want.
Well, I got to say, I love this whole idea. So, where did this and first of all, before I even get started, I want to say thank you for making time tonight. I know you're doing it from your car. And so, everybody listening and watching, this is what happens when you have several little kids at home and you got to find a quiet space, you were telling me. So, we make it work, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in my car, and that actually behind me is a standing desk. I have a demo unit that I take to different schools and have them kick the tires on it. So it's actually right back here. But yeah, in my car, kind of full circle family. Really, that's kind of how it started. Was my son broke his leg skiing at 5 years old, and kindergarten for us was like our first child going into kindergarten was we were super pumped, and it really we got deflated when he broke his leg and he was in a wheelchair for 4 months. In that time, it was so um, devastating for me as a dad because I was right there with him in the experience. And, when a 5-year-old's going in and out of consciousness because they spiral fracture their tibia, it was just a really gnarly experience. So when I was in the classroom, I was constantly trying to figure out ways to cheer him up, get engaged, help him with this interaction with school. Cause kindergarten is that intro and I'm all about first impressions, right? So I was like, gosh, like kindergarten was supposed to be that time where we can show this kid how cool education and school and make it fun. And then he breaks his leg and we're like, oh, not dad of the year award by any means, right? So in that time, I'm volunteering and the light bulb goes on because I said, when he gets out of this wheelchair, he's not going to want to sit. I said, but however, he's got the same activity levels as all these other kids right now. I don't feel that bad because he's sitting in his wheelchair and wherever they are, whether they're in their desk or on the floor or doing group activities, not hating on the process at all, just saying observation, most of them were sitting most of the time. So I said, when he gets out of this wheelchair, why don't we do a GoFundMe, raise some funds? And so we did that. In just a few weeks, we got like $1,700. There's another manufacturer. And to be honest, we put that product in and I found it to be, not just kind of overcomplicated. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the product was overcomplicated. I simplified it, made our own, cashed out my 401k because I don't want to go into debt and owe anybody anything for this brand. So I cashed out one of my 401ks and used that cash to start and build my first inventory. So I did a prototype, I did a test pilot, did all kinds of a process before we actually picked that final model. And it was all with my family's retirement money. So I took a huge risk there. So I've been, doing it for 2 years now, and that's kind of how it all started.
So, what career were or are you in before this?
So right now, I am actually during my day job. I cover 5 states doing medical sales, selling infection prevention disposables to hospitals, and then you know, basically from 9:30, 10 o'clock at night till 1 in the morning, I'm building the brand on. I've learned how to edit videos, build websites. Like I have standing desks in my garage right now. Like I mean, this is like, it couldn't get any more, grassroots. So I probably put 15 to 20 hours a week to this movement. And that's why we have product in 6 different states. We I wanted to go really slow and plant seeds with our test pilot school, and kind of the same thing in healthcare. People don't buy products at hospitals unless they see the data and the evidence and the efficacy of the product or the service. Same thing in education. I found is that principals and teachers and like thought leaders, the leaders that I've found on social media don't want to make too big of decisions unless they kick the tires on it and do a test pilot and see if their students like it. So this test pilot phase, has been really fun because I'm not in a rush. I don't owe anyone anything. I didn't go to the bank, so this is more of like trying to figure out how to really make an impact because I don't have any debt. And so it's been really cool right now, just in these early phases of working with these early test pilot schools. Sorry.
So I love this story though. So you are not an educator. You have not worked in education, but there was just something that happened to your son when he was entering kindergarten. That was the whole precipice of what led to you wanting to create this product. Um, Talk to me a little about the process. So you are in the classroom with him, volunteering. You see the need for something like this. Where do you even begin?
Honestly, being a sales guy, I was like, if anyone's going to even take this whole thing seriously, I kind of have to start at the top. So I went to the principal and like literally it was in a carpool lane, and she was really awesome. Thank goodness. And she said, look, like we don't have this on the docket right now for PTO this year, but we could do it for next year. But if you do a GoFundMe, a crowd rise, whatever, I'll fully support you. I'll blast out your link. And I kind of felt bad because I felt like, they had a whole schedule set up that year, and I was, taking a lot of social media traffic and attention. And so it was not disruptive, but it was like, gosh, who's this dad? Like,
Yeah.
soliciting this thing. And so we got $1,600 in like 3 weeks. It was really
Wow.
awesome. And so we placed 6 desks. Then the principal made a schedule chart of teachers that could request it for a couple weeks at a time. And it kind of just blew up into this really cool thing. So then I said to myself, like, gosh, why don't we make our own product? And I had a friend from Houston who I hadn't talked to in 15 years. He's a doctor in Houston. And he called me and he's like, if you're really serious about making your own desk, I can make the connections for you for the manufacturers and distribution. And I did
Wow.
that. And yeah, so it was pretty gnarly how that all happened. I had talked, and this guy, he's such a good guy. His name's Adriano Goffi, and I hadn't talked to him, like I said, in 15 years. So that's how the manufacturing and distribution part came in. I was just gonna
So,
be like
so
more of a philanthropic movement and do like crowdfunding and then social media like content creation. But then this opportunity to manufacture my own desk came across, and now I have a
So
inventory in
when
my
you were
garage.
thinking about kind of the design element, how heavily were you involved with the design, or is that kind of one of those things where it's your brainchild, but you pass it off to certain people who strengths certain areas?
Yeah, so really how this all started, I have to give a lot of credit to, and we're actually kind of full circle. I'm writing a book with him, and we got inspired by your book. But David Weiss, he's the principal at Westgate Elementary. He just saw my content on LinkedIn, and he hit me up. He's like, "Look, I don't know where you're going with this, but I really like it, and we'd love to if you get a prototype." Because basically, what I wanted to do is once I had the prototype, I wanted a school in Denver to help me with like the feedback and using it. And like I said, kick the tires on it. And so he volunteered and just kind of opened his doors and let me interview teachers, and like we even had some of his students go into innovation lab and assemble my prototypes on their own. And basically the thought was is like, if we can get third and fourth graders to assemble a desk and the design is simple and they like it, then we're succeeding, right? So um yeah, that's where I was like, gosh, this is the model. It's simple. And so that's where all the product feedback came back from. And then I went back to my manufacturer and said, hey, this is the one we really want. And so we went through like 3 or 4 different designs and like
Mhm.
3 or 4 different vendors before we figured out like This one is safe for the classroom. It's consolidated, small footprint. We have a space where you can put a TheraBand so the student can rock their
Mm-hmm.
foot, and I will say, being in education, you probably see the one that has the foot swing, right? The problem with that is over time, it could bend and there's
Right.
maintenance damage. We wanted to create something that was as simple as possible. And I still, me, I think it's still overcomplicated. I would like to remove some shelving and just keep it simple, because the end of the day, it just needs to be 3 or 4 of those in the back of the room where the kids just like, gosh, I don't want to sit down, and they go and they stand up. They might not need to have their stuff there, but it's like that little outlet. And from our test pilots, the feedback we're getting, it really is that little outlet for them.
So you named it Stand Up Our Kids. Talk to me about where that name came from.
So I want it to be more of the audience and the network embracing it as our kids. So everything I've basically done to build the brand has, crazily enough, come from the audience. So what a lot of people don't see is, like, you message me private. I have so many private messaging and like behind the scenes collaboration and friendships and connections. It's insane. It's actually really, it's like this little unofficial mastermind I've created. And so all of you geniuses have really helped me. After tonight, I'm recording this right now. I'm gonna, like, you know, try to figure out where we can take the brand next, what I can learn, what I can do better, and just constantly improve it. So, um, yeah, kind of like a PLN concept, right? Just always learning from these professionals around you. And then that's how we design the brand. I mean, that's really how I designed the brand.
So why'd you choose the name Stand Up Our Kids, though?
Because of, it's our kids. And so when I talk to you in my audience, I don't want you to think it's like my child or like your students, or it's all of ours together. So we have to stand them up. We can't stand up for them. That's the problem. If we stand up for them, um, they won't learn how to stand up for themselves. And so we have to actually stand them up and then push them out, right? So um, I want it to be more of using that word "our." It, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I would die for any kid, right? If here's the analogy: if there's a bus coming and there is a kid in front of the bus, would you really sit there and assess, well, is that my child or not my child? No. If you're gonna try to save the kid's life. So the point
Right.
is we should love all kids, our kids, together. And this might, on the micro, relate to how we treat some of these kids, whether they're, special eds kids, or have a disorder or not a disorder, on borderline of getting diagnosed, or, trauma from home. I was one of those kids that, had the trauma at an early age going into school. So, anything we can do to create togetherness. When you go to a school, and this is our school, our system, our community, yeah, that's really why I chose that title. I mean, that was really thought out.
So, this whole idea of, you're successful in your own career and you want to do something to better the lives of kids and your own kids too. And then you take this risk and you cash in your 401k. Like, you're married, right?
Yes, I've been married for 9.5 years.
So what does your wife say when you go to her and you're like, hey, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think it's still been really a foggy, unclear situation, because in my personal opinion, I think we're on the forefront of something great. And I think you reference a lot of that in your book. Is the 21st century is like, we're in the first quarter of the 21st century. There's so many new things we're getting into. And my wife and I don't know where the world where the world's going to be when my son is 16. I mean, he's 8 years old right now. You know how much is going to happen in the next 8 years. So I feel like, what we're doing now is at least a little piece of the pie where we're creating some impact. And I think she sees that. She never questions me, and I always get her support. But I think in the back of her mind, she's got a lot of questions. But the thing is that so do I. And I think the only
Yeah,
way we're going to answer these questions, if I just keep taking risk and keep going forward and doing things that we're not used to seeing. It's new, it's innovative, it's fun,
right.
it's and So I think she's helped me. I think it's also too, we've kind of embraced it into our lifestyle. So she understands that, our children thrive in an active environment. They thrive in combining movement and learning. And I
Right.
think that our son, when we got him his standing desk and he went from a bottom 10 reader to a top 5 reader, I mean, there's some game changing anecdotal experiences we've had with these standing desks and promoting an active lifestyle. And so, yeah, I think she's on board. It's just both of her and I are both like, we really don't know where this thing is going, but we're going to keep pushing.
Right. Well, this whole process to me is so interesting that just the idea of just taking a risk on something you have no idea how successful it could be, but really believing in your heart that that's where you want to put your effort and some money and all this other stuff. Knowing the whole process you've taken them, watching the trials your son went through that first couple months in kindergarten, having this idea, struggling with how you were going to do it, and then cashing in the 401k and getting your wife on board and this, and then now doing this in the evenings. What would you say is the biggest lesson you personally have learned through the whole process?
Gratitude is the drug. And I don't know if you've probably heard that a million times. I know in your book you reference a lot of those types of things where you came from and the opportunities that have been on your plate. And I just looked at this as an opportunity and I was just grateful for it, really. And when you get yourself in that zone, that mind zone of like, wow, this is an opportunity that I have to jump on, and I'm so grateful it even came my way. Um, it stimulates you to a point where you are always going to like have in the back of your mind, you're always going to put in a little bit of work each day, you're always going to figure out how you can push it forward a little bit. And so that for me is the biggest lesson, is being grateful for any opportunity that passes your way. And
Mhm.
since this whole thing has happened, I mean, I started this company, you know when, like, the worst time to start a company, I had 3 children at that time, 3 children under 7 years old.
Oh
um,
man.
like I cover 5 states in my day job, like Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, parts of Idaho, and parts of Montana. And crazily enough, last year was one of my best sales years ever. I just had my full focus hat on because I was so grateful for all these different
Mhm.
opportunities to be a dad, to be, a professional, have a good career, to have an entrepreneurial opportunity, like as many of us call it, this side hustle. I was just super grateful once things started working out. And plus, the gratitude comes a lot of times when you have challenges, right? And things aren't going your way. You just
Right.
figure out what else can you be
Mhm.
grateful for. So gratitude's the big lesson.
So, if people are interested in checking out these desks that you've created, where can they go to get information?
So I designed our website, standupourkids.com. The specific product information, you can go to standupourkids.com/shop. I will say we're active on, all the platforms, Facebook, and Instagram is Twitter, where we like to play a lot. So on the website, we have, you can shop for the product. We have a blog. We have a few videos, and it's pretty simple. Um, so that's where you can find us.
Okay. So your 8-year-old son, are there some stand-up desks in his school currently?
It's a great question. So the school that he was at, he was at public school, and he had his standing desks. He had his own standing desk the whole year. The problem now that we're facing is that he's at a new school, and the humility that I have, I don't want to go into a situation and just be like, hey, I own a standing desk company and my son has to have it, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and part of my empathy and compassion, again, reading your book, you really have to put yourself in the mind of an educator. So I've been slow with presenting the idea. We presented the
Right.
idea, and he's allowed to stand up. I think his teacher's just kind of figuring out, if she does make this disruption, how she's going to adapt. So I think they're open-minded to it. Maybe not this year, but he is allowed to stand up at any point in time in, like, if he just feels like standing up, he's allowed to stand next to his desk. So I'm good with that.
Hey, well, that's progress because the educators are all over the place when it comes to stuff like this. Because I've worked with teachers who are like, no, every kid will sit in a chair and will sit at their desk. And then I've worked with more progressive educators who understand there are some kids who need something that moves, or some kids who need to stand up, or need to sit at a higher desk on a stool, or all kinds of things. And I think providing kids those options is what exactly what we need. And I love that the one thing that really inspired me about what you're doing is that you had no other motivation other than you saw a need in your child's life and you wanted to change that. And you're not some huge corporation, but you're truly looking to do this to help kids and help educators. When the standing desks that you created were at your son's school previously, I'm so interested. Was he like, my dad's a rock star, like he designed that desk? Like, was he all into that too?
Yeah, we made the so there is a piece there. We made the news in South Florida. I have a close friend who got us on the news, and so now it's local news, and we all know it's not something that makes you famous, but now he tells people that we're famous. He's famous. I'm like, you gotta stop. We're not famous. It's like it's like a 2 minute thing on local news, but
Right, right.
he's super proud. He's totally super proud, but he definitely has the humility. He doesn't leverage that for anything. And what really, when he got the desk, honestly, I think that a lot of kids get this, is that they feel heard, right? So it's like every day you have this energy, you go in the classroom and you just pound it, like sit down, sit down, sit down, and you
Mhm.
just can't, as a kid, figure out how to not fidget and sit down, and it just becomes a lot of friction, right? And the second the teacher says, hey, I hear you, bro, you don't want to sit
Mhm.
down, here's your standing desk. And so when I told him, this piece, I said, we connected, your teacher and I connected. This is our plan for you. We're here to help you. We're here to help you succeed. He felt heard, right? Here's the other
Yeah.
piece, is the accountability piece. I said, look, your teacher is doing this because she cares about you and she wants your attention. The problem is if you get the standing desk and you still keep goofing off, you
Mhm.
know, the problem is it's going to get taken away. And
Yep.
that accountability piece, he just did not want to let it go. So it really made a bigger impact than I actually thought it was. And he finished the year so solid. It was amazing.
I love that. Well, the one more question I want to ask you is when you create something and you have no idea what the feedback is going to be from people, and you have great intention and you're just hoping that people like what you are doing enough that they buy into it. I mean, I think of when Adam and I did Kids Deserve It, it was like we don't know how people are going to take this, but this is just going to be our heart on the page. And I know with this product, it's just your heart in the product. What has been one of the most impactful pieces of feedback or comments that somebody has made to you after using one of the desks you created?
So I think the first thing that comes to mind is we have a Title I school in Fort Lauderdale, and the teacher is a close friend of mine from thing in my network 20 years ago. We played baseball together, and he's a great teacher. And this Title I school struggles with some certain things, and it's a great school, but I think his issue is trying to help some of the kids that struggle
Mm-hmm.
with the behavior piece. And so he got a desk, and a week later he texts me a picture, and he said in the caption, this is one of our probably the most problematic child in the school, and it's kind of changed his life. And in the picture or the video was him fully engaged in his work. Foot was rocking, standing there in a really confident position, calm. And the teacher said that was like a routine thing after the desk got there. So it was the token that changed his behavior. And again, this is not end all be all, but for
Yeah.
some kids, it truly is. They're looking for any little straw
Mm-hmm.
to pull. And when they get that feeling of, oh gosh, and so when I saw that video, I was like, gosh, this is such a huge purpose. This is so much bigger than I really
Yeah.
had anticipated. And I say bigger, I want the audience to know this is not about bigger, like millions of dollars and being famous and being cool. This is about
Mm-hmm.
like making impact on kids' lives. That
Right.
video is the paycheck. And I hope a lot of people understand that is, when you build a brand, I've made no money. I've basically
Mhm.
hit par. I'm a for-profit manufacturer. We're going to look at making a foundation, but you really got to be engaged with the impact you want to make. And I think, you know, a lot of people have to understand that it's very simple to use these social media tools and reach out to professionals like yourself and do a lot of these things. You gotta want it. You gotta understand you can actually really make a difference in kids' lives. I mean, it's a piece of furniture, and a kid that's used to coming to school and not having a good school experience is now having a
Mhm.
good experience. So that
Right.
that's the game changer for me.
Well, and I love the comment you made of this is not the end all be all, but for one kid, it may be exactly what they need to be successful. And I think that as educators, that's what we got to remember is that for those of us in the field, we're not looking for a silver bullet because it doesn't exist. And it's just that what products can we find that will help certain kids to be successful? And for some of them, that may mean that they need to stand during instruction and have a space where they can work and stand from. So I love the story. I love the idea, the
Thank you.
entrepreneurialism, and I'm super encouraged by the whole how it came to be and how it really is just a love thing for you. Like it's just a passion, and it hasn't been something you're like I'm throwing the whole rest of my life away, and this is all I'm going to focus on. It's like I believe in this, and I'm going to put work in this, and I'm going to make this happen. But I'm going to support my family too, and I'm going to do these things. And so I think that's just an awesome story. And
Thank
so,
you.
Derek, I really appreciate you for sure coming on and sharing some of that tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And and it's a full circle experience. If you're a dad or a parent out there, a teacher, and you want to make an impact, I would say that if you have little kids, eventually they're going to look through your phone. They're going to look at your content. They're going to look at the legacy you're leaving behind. And it's good to like lead by example and show them, hey, these are the positive ways you can use the tool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fun because, the big paycheck for me is we're stepping in this new era, and you got to try new things, and we got to show kids that you can try new things because like your book says, kids deserve it. The situation is you just got to put in the effort, and a little bit of impact can go really really far ways, and that's kind of like a contagious thing. It starts to snowball. So
Yeah.
anyone out there who's like looking to get involved, just press the start button and see where it goes, and I guarantee you'll figure out how to make an impact once you get in it.
Awesome. I love that. And that's the perfect way to end. And so thank you, Derek, for coming on. Thank you for all of our listeners and viewers who are checking out tonight, as well as if you're watching this recorded. And make sure you check out next week's episode with my special guest, Stacy Erickson. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And remember to get out there, be brave, and tell your story because people need to hear it. Have a great evening.